You're back again listening to Life in a Wine Bottle. I'm your host, Nelson Pizarro. Our special guest speaker is Lisa RedWine, and she's part of the SDSU wine program. In part one, we're going to talk about Lisa's background, how she got into wine, SDSU, and what exactly does she do at SDSU. This is a perfect podcast for anyone interested in learning more about wine. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channels or iTunes, Spotify, Google Play. Also, like us and follow us on Facebook, Instagram at Life in a Wine Bottle. Quick shout out to our sponsors, Castelli Family Vineyards, where you can taste the love of the wine. Follow and like them on Instagram at CastelliFE. Bespoke Maestro, they make elegant dresses and suits benefiting any occasion. Follow them on Instagram at Bespoke Maestro. San Diego Wine Tasting App. Easy to use, free to download, fun to find a new winery. Download the app today on Apple Store and Google Play. Search for San Diego Wine Tasting App. Lastly, SDSU Wine Program. Our wine classes are combined wine tasting and wine education. The wine certification program is a combination of lecture, reading, and tasting in a holistic approach to wine. What are you waiting for? Start your wine program today. You can follow them on Instagram and Facebook at SDSU Wine. Also, you can follow Lisa at Lisa RedWine. Now let's get on with the show. What was it that you did this weekend? Was there anything special, exciting, or nothing, and stayed home?
Well, this weekend was really cool. For me, it was kind of like a return a little bit to, I don't want to say normal, but things that I'm really passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
So this weekend was Robert Whitley's sommelier wine competition.
Mm-hmm.
So it's orchestrated with Robert Whitley, Rich Cook, and Jesse Rodriguez, who's an amazing sommelier that used to reside here in San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
And he's in North Carolina, and he came back for this this competition.
Oh,
so
nice.
So it was scaled back
Mm-hmm.
and COVID friendly, or not COVID friendly, but COVID preventative.
Yeah, almost relaxed.
Right?
Right.
It felt very safe.
Uh-huh.
I actually preferred the way that we were judging. It was a really great way to judge.
Uh-huh.
And then in the afternoon, I was on the couch watching football, like today. You know, in my house, you know, come football season, it is game on. Like, you know, so for me, it was kind of a, you know, things that I really cared about, you know, getting back, you know, it was funny. I was telling some friends, you know, starting my morning, you know, going virtually to church and then going to taste wine all day, watching football all afternoon and into the evening, and pizza for dinner because we were lazy on a Sunday.
Uh-huh.
What a great way to enjoy.
Yeah. That's a perfect. So that
Right?
was on Sunday or
Sunday.
Monday? Sunday? Nice.
Sunday. And
that's really nice to hear. Okay, what else? Sorry.
Well, and I mean, one of the things that I just see happening is that, you know, COVID hasn't gone away, but we're learning how to adapt to live within it safely.
Mm-hmm.
Like I go back to the gym, I belong to the YMCA and I can work outside. And yesterday they opened some of the gyms back up, you know.
And restaurants
right.
A lot more.
And
not just
restaurants can, you know, are open. And, you know, it's funny, because I'm out in restaurants all the time, I don't feel unsafe. I feel very safe. And, you know, everybody's taking this very seriously. So, you know, in an imperfect time, there's really great ways to still live, you know, and to take care of yourself safely. So
yeah. Oh, great. So you did a lot.
Right.
That's exciting.
Oh, yeah.
How are the wines in the competition?
Oh, they were good. We had some great wines. Yeah.
Good. So you're able to take that on that. I know because we enter our wines in the Finger Lakes competition. I don't know if you know that one. And that they kind of postponed it. Like they pushed it really back. So they just finished that probably in July and they sent us some stuff. So it was really nice to see that part. But you know,
this was the
crazy.
first competition they've had face to face.
Now, have you been part of a lot of competitions? Is that your normal?
Just with Robert Whitley and his organization. So I do the international competition. Just one time I've judged the Toast of the Coast, and then I participate in the LA competition.
Oh, cool. Okay. I share with you my little story this weekend. We bottled about 10,000 bottles.
Wow.
Yeah, a little bit over 10,000 bottles. And I wish I can tell you it went smoothly, but bottling is, I had another winemaker last podcast named Aaron Walker from Pally Wines.
Hmm.
And he says that's his worst thing to do is bottling. He cannot
Uh,
stand doing bottling, but he's in a bigger scale.
right.
Yes, 10,000 seems like a lot, but in the overview, it's only about a little over 800 cases. So it's not really the scale that he's in.
Right.
So,
Right. Right.
but other than that, we were able to bottle it. We just had a problem. We couldn't put our labels on it because our paper was too thin and it wasn't looking good. So we basically, more than half of the bottles, we don't have labels on right now. So yeah, it's gonna be another fun time afterwards, taking out the bottles and relabel them. But other than that,
Right.
it's just the life of doing wine and doing it the production that we're doing. You're always gonna have little hiccups here and there. So, but
Right.
we did bottle it, so we're just excited about that. And that will
Oh,
actually be our 2017 vintage. So we take some
nice.
time on wine and our bills. So yeah, it was really nice. Um, well, I'm glad you're able to hopefully get back to normal, right? From
Or
doing
or just
more.
a different way of living safely.
Yeah, I guess a different way of living, and I guess respecting everybody else, right? That's kind of
Right.
what's happening right now.
Hmm.
Some people don't care about it, some people do, and I think there's people in the middle are kind of like, you know, I guess I'll just do it. It is what it is.
Hmm.
So give us a little bit. Oh, so first, one more thing. Is your last name really Redwine?
It is.
So
It is
you're
really
already,
red wine.
your life was already uh
No,
created to
no,
be in the wine world.
well, I was a sommelier in San Francisco when I met my husband, David.
Oh,
Today is our 18-year anniversary.
oh, congratulations.
We went on 4 blind dates.
Mhm.
I was over 30 when I met him. So after 4 dates, I was like, okay, you got to figure it out.
He's the
Are we
one,
moving
yeah.
forward or am I cutting the cord? David calls it the final interrogation, where we went and I literally asked him 3 hours of questions.
Mhm.
At the end of that, I looked at him and I went, oh my God, I have no idea what your last name is. And when he told me it was red wine, I was
You're like, that's it.
things are going to go well for you, buddy. You're good.
Now, is he in the
So,
wine world too? Is your husband in the
huh?
wine world?
No, no, he is of no part of this insanity.
Okay.
No, he works in the healthcare profession.
Okay.
But when I met him, he didn't know anything about wine. And now I have to label like what he can drink and what he cannot touch. Like,
Oh, nice. So you have your own stash that you do not want him to touch.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
That is great. All right. So, well, now that you're Red Wine, Mrs. Red Wine, that's great. I love the last name. So give us a little bit of background about yourself. How do you get into the wine? Well, you say you just were in or not just in San Francisco, but I assume that you grow up there, or just tell a little
Mm.
background about yourself.
No, I grew up in Madison, Wisconsin, and I always say I didn't grow up fancy, but I grew up real. Like, Madison farmers markets. My grandfather was a cheesemaker. My other grandfather was a butcher. And I grew up respecting food. Predominantly that was my true love. And I wanted to go to culinary school. And keep in mind, like, gosh, 35 years ago now, 40 years ago. No, no, 40, like 35, 30 years
Let's just
ago.
say around the 30 range.
Well,
Yeah.
while ago. Not, it wasn't a profession that most women went into.
Mhm.
And my parents were both in education, and they felt very strongly that I should have a bachelor's degree in something. So I wanted to go to a UW Stout, where I got a degree in hotel restaurant management. And my minor was in culinary, and I've always loved cooking since I was a little girl. So once I got my degree, my parents said, okay, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm going to go to the Culinary Institute of America. So I went to the CIA in New York, and You know, back then they didn't have a lot of the fancy things that they have now. And yet it was one of the most prestigious um, and intense things that I've ever done. It
Wow.
was immersing myself in something that I truly cared about. And they teach you techniques, but they don't teach you passion. And from there, yeah, my parents really wanted me to move back to Madison, money and
Yeah.
work in a restaurant there. And I said, no, that's not what I wanted to
I
do.
wonder why.
Right. So they said, well, if you want to do something else, well, then you have to do it on your own. So literally, I had $100, literally $100 in my bank account,
Wow.
charge card, credit card. I drove a Hyundai Excel. So, and I found my apartment, believe it or not, on in the want ads in the San Francisco Chronicle back then.
Uh-huh.
And I found a job. The day I graduated, I got a call from Ilka Gilmore, who sadly is no longer with us. And I had staged with Tracy Desjardins years ago. And so Ilka had a position. So the day of my graduation, the morning of, I get this phone call.
Wow.
And there's a very great story behind that. You know, Ilka was a great chef in Madison where I grew up, and she took that home at a very young age. And so for me, it was a great opportunity. So I jumped. And I moved to San Francisco. My first roommate was a professional dancer for a dance troupe, and my other roommate was a professional comedian. So to take this very Midwest girl and insert her into this really cool, like once in a lifetime opportunity, I was like, wow, this is so cool. So I worked in San Francisco and back at the house for some time. And I decided I wanted to open my own restaurant. And I had some great mentors who said, you know, you're gonna want to spend some time in front of the house.
Yeah. Get that
like,
experience.
why?
Yeah.
Like, why? Yeah. How hard could it be?
Yeah, we want everything so fast.
Right?
You know?
And little did I know. So I started working with John Cunin at one of his restaurants, and I was a hostess. And then I decided I'd have had enough and I wanted to go back to the kitchen. And the day I went to go give my notice, the chef of that restaurant and John offered me a position as an assistant manager. And that's where my career really took off, you know, in front of the house. And I learned so much being in front of the house. And it's not about getting people to a table. It's about the care and the hospitality side. And, you know, you can be imperfect, but create a perfect experience by caring about that guest and treating them like the pleasure that they are when they walk through the doors. So from there, I, you know, just kind of worked my way up and eventually ended up at a restaurant called Cypress Club, which was in its day was a heyday restaurant. And John was great to me. But that's where I really first experienced sommeliers. And I remember telling my mom, I'm like, can you believe this? Like, they get paid to do that. Wow. Because in my life, like, I never imagined that, you know, wine was always something I enjoyed. It wasn't something I ever considered for a career.
Like a profession, yeah.
Right. I just never, like, you mean you get paid to do what you love? Like,
well, taste wines and choose what wine
basically
put on the menu so that the customers will take what you choose from.
And from there, I mean, I worked with Umberto Giubina at Grand Cafe, and one of the greatest gifts he gave me was I wasn't allowed to purchase one bottle of wine until I could manage the revenue and cost side of a wine program, especially in a restaurant of that size. And I still remember the first case of wine I ever purchased, and it's no longer being made, but it was made by a very little known winery at the time. Now it's like, you know, for any collector, it's a standard. So it was Costa Brown Sauvignon Blanc.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, never, you know, that was my very first wine purchase. It was very exciting. And from there, I was introduced to the Quartermaster of Sommeliers. I got a scholarship to take that first level. Certified didn't exist at that time. You know, and between then, I got married and had Drew, our oldest son, and then I went on to to continue on taking exams and always educating myself. So, and
Perfect.
but
That's
I
a,
mentioned that both my parents were educators, and I never wanted to go into education.
uh-huh.
Never thought I would.
Yeah.
And here I sit in, directly involved in education, and not only am I involved in education, but I so love it. And it was such an aha moment the first time I taught. I was like, oh, now I understand why my parents loved
Yes.
education.
Yeah. Yeah. You're completely in a different, I don't know about your parents' side, what they taught or teach,
Oh,
but for you, you physically have students that want to be there.
oh yeah,
It's super different than just doing an English major, a 101
right,
English
right.
or algebra or whatever you got to come into, that you're just like, I got to take this course. This one is, I want to take this course and it's going to be a great opportunity for me to learn. And it's easy for you to get that energy off those students and then
Right,
push them, because you're like, oh, I never thought about that. And then go different, go back and forth with each other.
right.
So that's a perfect background. I love the story. Thank you for sharing that. I did a little research, obviously, and I knew a little bit that the whole thing kind of turned around for you when you really didn't want to be in education, but now you're in it and you really enjoy it. So that's
Hmm.
always funny. What I guess that's kind of the wine, the wine side of it. Nobody really starts off with wine, right? It's obviously, you got to get older and things like that, but you get to a certain age and wine is something that you don't think about it. More it's the beer and hard liquor. And then all of a sudden you start getting older and you go to certain parties and it's not so much of getting how drunk you can get, but
Yeah,
how,
yeah, right,
right? How much you enjoy this wine.
right,
And then since you love food, and most people do love food. I mean, as you start getting older, time kind of goes so much faster that you want to slow it down with a meal. So
right.
instead of eating, because I love to just eat fast, just like, hey, we got to go. We have kids. We got to go do this. We got to go take them to soccer. We got to, things like that. But then when we go out on dates with my wife and we just have a good time just hanging out there, there's no rush. Um, just having a good time being with each other, and that setting with wine just kind of enhances that experience. And at least that's
Exactly.
for myself. I don't know if you get that
I
same
agree totally.
that same side of it. So you got into wine from a couple of basically mentors. That's kind
Hmm.
of what you'll say you got into wine. You got your first purchase or you made your first purchase. And after that, was it kind of like a spiral that you stayed,
Hmm.
hey, I want to keep on doing this. I got my certificates or my class and my courses and just grew from there? Or were you kind of stuck in between of saying, I'm just going to be a manager? Well,
No, no. Anything I pursued after Grand Cafe was it was mandatory that I had control of a wine program.
okay.
And
So you already knew after that point, you
oh
were
yeah,
just saying, okay, I'm going to step away from the kitchen, even though I love cooking, but the wine really kind of can open up even more doors, right?
hmm,
Because I mean, the kitchen life is a hard life. The restaurant life, that life is a nightlife.
there's. I was gonna say there's no easy. Somebody who's worked both sides of the fence. You know, kitchen work is it's grueling,
Mm-hmm.
and when you're in that side of the business, it takes a toll physically. It's hot, it's uncomfortable. The pay, I think there's a huge disparity in pay.
Yeah,
You know, that it's a hard life. But when you're passionate about it, again,
you're not working.
I never minded. I never thought it was so hard. I loved working in the kitchen. On a day off, my happiest days off are when I can just cook all day, meal prep. Love that. And then in front of the house, I mean, I would say, in my head, the kitchen girl in me would say, ah, like those servers have it so easy. Their shift is what, 6, 7, maybe 7 hours long. But being in front of people that long and having to talk and,
And then issues. You're gonna
and
have
issues, right?
really, even if the chef comes out and helps out, you still gotta kind of put down the fire when it didn't go the way
Yeah,
you wanted. So yeah, I can see that. I can feel the pain and the emotion behind that. And I just know
yeah,
the restaurant industry is a really tough industry. And we always feel bad, right now, especially with all this, we always try to, when restaurant owners come in, and I just try to help them as much as I can, give them, they ask me, what deals do I have? And then
right,
I find out that they're restaurants, and I'm like, well, let me help you out a little bit more because I know what you guys are going through. And when you can't open up to that, I mean, 80% is, you can't even survive 80%, you need all that tables filled. So hopefully this changes a lot faster than slower right now.
yeah,
But we're
yeah,
getting
yeah.
there. We're getting there little by little. So let's talk a little bit about SDSU wine program. Talk to us.
Okay,
What do you do there exactly? What's your title? Give us a little background about that.
okay.
And how long is that program? How long has the program started?
Well, this program started, gosh, I would, I mean, it's been almost 15 years or about 15 years. It was, I mean, I've been involved with it for over 12. And I've seen it grow and change significantly. Through the course of it, there's always been a heartbeat to the course schedule, and really it's like I always say it's like constructing a house. You build a strong foundation, and then the classes above it are your add-ons, right? So are you going to have a one-story house, a two-story house? Are you going to have a mansion? The one thing you don't want to have is just a penthouse where you learn the very top, but you don't know everything underneath, right?
So
Um,
levels,
right,
your
exactly.
courses, your levels,
Right,
building up.
exactly.
Mhm.
So my official title, I mean, I'm an advisor to the program. And then I've been on the advisory board when we had one. And then I'm an instructor. I thought at the core of it, the most important thing to me is being an instructor. So
So
I
you
teach
teach
foundation.
classes.
Yeah.
You teach, and
I
what classes are you teaching right now, or do you switch it
so
off?
the class that I teach is called Exploring Wine, which is a foundational level class. And even if you hold a certificate as somebody who studies wine, I put it in my answer, as somebody who studies wine literally every single day, this class is imperative because as you move up, you forget so much. And it's really important to always go back and touch those foundations.
Yeah, yeah.
As somebody who has taken that master's exam a couple of times, I have literally had questions asked of me that I teach in class. Maybe asked a little bit more in depth, but at the heart of the answer, those are things that I actually teach in class.
It started back from
Mhm.
our foundation,
Right.
foundation that you're talking about.
So I always say, like, hey, everything I teach you is going to take you to somewhere else, wherever that might be.
Oh, nice.
And then I've taught things like Italian wines, French wines. I taught a class a few times called, it was terroir driven, wines from different terroirs. I've developed a class called dessert wines, which was quite popular.
I bet.
This year, we were supposed to release and launch a new class called Champagne and Sparkling Wines of the World, and then also teach dessert wines. But with COVID, we put everything on hold. And one of the really exciting things that's going on within the certificate program in and of itself is that we're really taking this opportunity during COVID is to really evaluate, look at what the classes are, add to them, especially on the business side of it, and then see what we can do online. Before it'd be like, well, it's impossible to do a sensory class online. Well, is it?
Yeah.
Is it really impossible? Or is there a way we can figure it all out?
Yeah. So you
You
guys are,
know,
are trying to brainstorm and really giving. Obviously, it's great to be in person, right? It's that
it is.
feel, that touch environment in a classroom. You get the same energy from everybody else. Like, oh, this guy or this person loves wine. Me too.
Right.
You're like
Right.
kind of pushing each other, or, oh, have you tried this one? Have you did this? Have you went to that vineyard? You know,
Yes.
that's the
It's
only downside, right? That's the only
right.
downside.
It is not the same. However, I'm involved in an organization called Women's Wine Alliance, and I was the past president, and I'm now one of the educators for it. And we do a once a month seminar for kind of more like the advanced members in our organization. And what I found during doing that is that you can get that same, it's not exactly the same level of involvement, but by becoming proficient at Zoom, it's become really helpful.
Mhm.
So I always say there's a will, there's a way. There's no stop signs, only alternative routes. Like let's figure it out and keep the world going. It's just like a vineyard. Just because the world has stopped, grapes don't stop growing, right?
Right. Yeah.
Because we've kind of slowed things down in the world doesn't mean the desire for education has stopped.
And even going to that, I mean, on the obviously the downside, you can't physically be there. The upside, you can touch more people.
Yeah,
You know, like
sure.
if somebody is in San Francisco and
Right.
they know you had that connection, and you're always talking about your classes, and they finally physically can see your
Right.
students, and then go from there. You know, so there's not there's I think there's more positive than negatives in
Oh
any
yeah.
situations, and it's good that
Mhm.
you're always trying to look at the positive and not really be gloom and doom. Right? There's
Yeah.
what's the reason? It's already hard enough right now what the world's going through. Might as well be cheer up a little bit and have a good time tasting some wines.
Right.
So and teaching. So with let me see the how would you recommend people signing up for your wine program now since it's online, or what would you
Right.
say? Talk to us a little bit about that.
So it's super easy. First thing is that the only prerequisite to these classes is that you have to be over 21.
Okay.
If you're doing the certificate program as the one that teaches exploring wine, I always say you should really start with that class because again, you don't want to build that penthouse without having a strong foundation. So you take that class and then build from there.
So do you get to choose then? Sorry for cutting you off, but do you get to choose, or what's going on there? Because I know you want that foundation first, but are you seeing a lot of people that have taken courses, not through you, but somewhere else, and skipping that foundation part and going, or what's going on there?
No, no, usually they end up taking it. And the one thing that I'm so happy about is that when they get done with the class, they were like, yeah, glad I did.
I'm glad. Okay.
So yeah.
Okay. So your advice is I sign up online, number one class, the foundation, or I
Foundation,
mean,
exploring wine,
exploring
and
wine.
then add from there, right?
Number one, you have to do exploring wine. So whoever's listening
Well,
and you want that part, we go
and
that route
again,
first.
things are a little different right now.
Mhm.
So you may just have to take what's available. So,
Okay.
that's in a perfect world, that would be the answer. But right now, it's like, hey, let's explore what we can do virtually.
Okay.
It
And
costs, and the classes range, anywhere from $279 to $499.
okay.
Um,
And
exploring,
is that a pretty good deal? Is that average? Is that high? What
yeah.
would you say?
So the total cost for the certificate lies right around $2,600.
Okay.
And, that is a great benefit because it can, I think about some of my students and what they've done with that certificate and where they are today is pretty incredible.
Mhm.
So again, it's a great jumpstart to a jumpstarting your career, filling in some holes, or even if, this kind of leads into, who should take this.
Mhm.
One of the things like I love, um, I love teaching exploring wine because I have such a dichotomy of students
Mhm.
and every class is different. So I can't go into class and just be a robot and, read my slides up. I really have to consider who's in my class, what are their goals, and how can I take this core of information and customize it for the next 8 weeks.
Mhm.
So in my class, if you are the enthusiast and want to know more about the world of wine, like I often have people who know a ton about French wine, Burgundy. They love Burgundy,
Mhm.
but don't know anything about South Africa, about South
Italian.
America,
Yeah.
right? Italy, Spain, the Germany, like the world is just not Burgundy. It's a lot of other things.
Australian or New Zealand.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Or I've had students whose husband or wife are really into wine and they want to have a better conversation with them. I've had people in my class who have been just starting, they're bartenders, they're servers. They, work in the grocery store for distributors and they want to move up in the world of wine. I've had people who are managers or worked in events. So it really touches all facets of life, which is kind of cool. I can't think of many organizations who have the opportunity to touch such a wide range of a student base.
Mm-hmm.
And that student base, just because you take Exploring Wine doesn't mean you have to take the certificate. You can take the things that interest you. And what I have found over the years is that people start with Exploring Wine thinking that that's going to be the only class they take. Mm-hmm. One thing that they leave with is, one, never enough time. And number two, it's like, okay, well, I love that. And I discovered, I loved Argentinian wines. So I want to take Maurice's class on South America, right? So again, it's kind of a stepping stone to find your passion.
That's really great. And thank you for explaining who, because that's the biggest thing. Like, why would some random person join these courses, right?
Right.
That's exactly what, because I mean, if you really think about it, I would say a lot of people's livelihood is around restaurant or entertainment, so just getting a little bit more knowledge of what you're tasting and how you're tasting it and how to even buy the product and grow that route. I think that's a great description. I mean, for me, I haven't really thought about the courses. The reason how I got connected to you guys, actually thinking about you guys, was two guys. One guy named Don and the other one Ron. Oh, that's kind of funny, Don and Ron. But Donald,
I know exactly. By the way, not knowing their last names, I know exactly who you're talking about.
Okay. Yeah, these are great guys, and they ended up being wine members at our vineyard. And I met Don. I don't even know how I got connected to Don. Ron, I met. This is actually a pretty funny story. We're at a soccer facility, and he has a slushy company, and he was at the bar, and my wife was right next to him, and he was taking a picture, at the Vino app or something, wine, one of those apps. And she's like, "Oh, cool. What is that?" And he's like, "Oh, it's just a wine app. I like to do reviews, and I just enjoy wine." And she's like, "Oh, sweet." And it's like, "Well, my husband makes wine." And then she like, "What?" And she left. And he's like, "What?" So then he followed her, and his wife was watching him from the distance and was like, "Why is he taking so long getting my wine?" And he's looking at him talking to my wife. And then he goes behind my wife and walks. And then finally he comes back to her and says, really, I'm not flirting with her. He just makes wine. And I just wanted to get to know about that. So she's like, "Oh, sweet." So they both came, and that's how he ended up becoming a wine member after that. They came up the week after that. So, and he's in the printer business. So and then I got another person through you guys. And I don't know if you're a part of that email, but it was, or who does your social media. But I just said, well, if somebody really enjoys wine like Ron and Don, why don't I just reach out to these guys, and maybe they might know somebody that would like to be a taste room associate and just kind of learn in-house how it feels to be in a really boutique winery and see what kind of, challenges we get every day. So then we have Al that showed up, Al Fisher. I don't know if you met him. And
so all these people that you're talking about have all gone through my class, and Al Fisher.
Yeah, he's a man, and he's part of our team now. He's been with us for the past 2 weekends, and he's great, and he just loves. I mean, I'm physically making him work, like going to pick grapes, and he helped us bottle actually on Friday, and he's like, "I haven't been that store for a long time, but I loved it. I loved seeing your guys' process." So it's great to, and the biggest thing I always tell these to whoever comes in here or becoming wine members, I always tell them, if you have 100 wine members or wineries that you belong to as a member, I don't want to be 101. I'd rather you enjoy the wines and open it up here and there and, not be so big. I want you to really come to our winery and experience us and grow with us and see my family grow and see the wines grow. than just be just another, oh, I just might as well do it. And it's super
Right.
hard because, of course, that's one of the backbones of a small winery is building your wine club membership.
Oh yeah.
And I'm kind of pushing it away, but I want them. We have a great place. Obviously, I'm going to say we have a great place and our facility, but at the end of the day, it's just that, like you said, the passion and the customer service and the drive and giving them the love that you gave them is something that you can feel and taste,
Mhm.
so but I'm glad you know those guys. I already have Ron on one of them because he actually has land and he's been going back and forth trying to plant a vineyard. And Don, he's been in the industry for a long time with Gallo, so it's I learned a lot of how to get into other avenues, especially with the production that we do. So I pick his brain sometimes, and he comes up and picks my brain about wines and growing in the class. And Al's, I think, doing his class, a test soon, exam coming up this next 2 weeks or so. So he's
Cool.
studying on Sunday. So good job on teaching these guys,
Right.
and they love it. You kept their fire going. That was the end of part one. Topic: SDSU wine program with special guest Lisa RedWine. Make sure you tune in part two, where we're going to talk a little bit more of how the class is structured from start to finish. Plus, we're going to get to know what her ultimate goal is personally and with the wine program. Make sure you tune in. You follow us and like us on Instagram at Life in a Wine Bottle. Again, thank you to all the sponsors: Castelli Family Vineyards, Bespoke and Maestro, San Diego Wine Tasting App, and SDU Wine Program. I'm your host, Nelson Pizarro. This is Life in a Wine Bottle, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks.